Friends, there is something about Ohio in the 1960s that people who lived through it cannot forget. It was a time of big change, but also a time of strong community and simple pleasures. If you grew up in Ohio then, you remember the sound of cicadas on a hot summer night, the smell of freshly cut grass, and the taste of your grandma's homemade pie. You can almost see the classic cars cruising down Main Street, hear the rock and roll music on the radio, and picture families gathered around the television set. Let's walk through what daily life actually felt like in Ohio during that unforgettable decade. Let's step into that world. Ohio is a state with different parts, and each felt a bit special in the 1960s. In the northern parts, close to Lake Erie, cities like Cleveland and Toledo were busy with factories. People here worked hard, making steel and cars. Down south near the Ohio River, Cincinnati had its own charm, a mix of southern manners and northern industry. The middle of Ohio was often about farming, with wide-open fields and smaller towns where everyone knew everyone else. Each area had its own rhythm, but all were distinctly Ohio. Work was a big part of life for many Ohioans. Factories hummed with activity, providing jobs for thousands. Men often worked in these plants, making good wages that could support a family. Women, while often staying home, were also starting to enter the workforce more, especially in offices or shops. Farmers tended their land, growing corn and soybeans, their lives tied to the seasons. Downtown areas in every town had local businesses, bakeries, hardware stores, and barber shops, all run by people from the community. Getting around Ohio meant a lot of driving. The 1960s were the golden age of American cars, and you saw them everywhere. Big, shiny Fords, Chevrolets, and Plymouths. Gas was incredibly cheap, often less than 30 cents a gallon. This made road trips a common thing for families. Weekends might mean a drive to a state park or a visit to relatives in another town. Traffic was nothing like it is today. Even in bigger cities, buses also ran in larger towns, taking people to work or to the shops. Homes in Ohio were often sturdy, comfortable places. Many families lived in single-family houses with big yards. Front porches were important, a place to sit in the evening and talk to neighbors. Kids played outside freely, riding bikes and playing ball until the streetlights came on. Neighborhoods felt safe, and doors were often left unlocked. It was common for neighbors to know each other well, helping out with gardening or watching each other's children. Music was everywhere in 1960s Ohio. Rock and roll was huge, with bands like the Beatles and the Beach Boys playing on every radio. Motown music from Detroit also made its way across Lake Erie, filling homes with soulful sounds. Families gathered around the radio to listen to their favorite songs or watched musical acts on TV shows. Record players were common, and kids saved their allowance to buy the latest 45s. Live music could be found in local dance halls or school gyms. Shopping was a different experience back then. Every town had its main street or downtown area lined with local shops. Department stores like Lazarus or Higbee's were grand places, especially around the holidays. You could spend a whole afternoon browsing through clothes, toys, and household goods. Diners were popular spots for a quick meal or a milkshake. Malls were just starting to appear, offering a new way to shop, but the heart of commerce was still the local shopkeeper. Ohio's food culture was hearty and comforting. Home cooking was king. Sunday dinners were a big deal, with roast chicken or pot roast, mashed potatoes, and gravy. Churches often held potlucks, bringing everyone together with casseroles and desserts. Local diners served up classic American fare, burgers, fries, and milkshakes. In the summer, fresh corn on the cob was a treat, and in the fall, apple cider and pumpkin pie were everywhere. Holidays meant special family recipes passed down through generations. School life in the 1960s was structured but also fun. Kids walked to school or rode the bus, carrying their textbooks and lunch pails. Classrooms had blackboards and chalk, and lessons were taught with a strong focus on reading, writing, and arithmetic. After school, kids didn't have as many organized activities as today. They played outside, building forts, riding bikes, or playing stickball. Homework was important, but so was simply being a kid and exploring. Discipline at school and at home was often firm but fair. Weekends were for family and community. Many families went to church on Sunday mornings. Parks were busy with picnics and games. Kids played sports like baseball or football in open fields. Summer evenings might involve a drive-in movie theater, where you watched films from the comfort of your car. Family trips were often to nearby state parks or perhaps a visit to Cedar Point Amusement Park. These were times to slow down, connect, and enjoy simple moments together. Ohio weather brought all 4 seasons, each with its own feeling. Summers could be hot and humid, with kids running through sprinklers and adults relaxing on porches. Fall was beautiful with vibrant colors as the leaves changed, and the crisp air was perfect for football game. Winters brought snow, turning the landscape into a wonderland. Kids loved snow days and sledding. Spring was a time of new growth, with flowers blooming and the promise of warmer days ahead. People learned to live with and enjoy each season. The 1960s in Ohio also saw its share of big events and changes. The civil rights movement was gaining strength, and while Ohio was a northern state, it felt the impact of these changes. Cities faced challenges, and there were discussions about fairness and equality. Space exploration captivated everyone, with Neil Armstrong, an Ohio native, becoming the first man on the moon in 1969. This was a moment of immense pride for the state and the nation. These were years of both excitement and reflection. If you are enjoying this trip back in time and want to help keep these memories alive, you can support this channel by subscribing or becoming a member. It means a lot to people who love remembering these years. For those who lived through Ohio in the 1960s, it was a decade that shaped them. It was a time of community, hard work, and evolving traditions. You remember the sound of classic cars, the smell of home cooking, and the feeling of a tight-knit neighborhood. The music playing on the radio, the simple joy of playing outside, and the warmth of family gatherings all defined those years. The Ohio of the 1960s might seem different from today, but the spirit of its people, their resilience, and their love for their home still echo. For those who remember Ohio in those years, there is always more history to explore.